Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we're making this gorgeous flower granny square. This 3D flower granny square is so fun to make just using little scraps of yarn, 4 different colors, 1 for your center and 3 colors for your petals. It is also part of the Bloomscape Cal 2023. The Bloomscape Cal is 1 new granny square, 1 new flower center. If you want to join in on the Bloomscape Cal 2023, I will link that playlist in the description box down below, as well as the cards up above. And it's not too late to join. We're just making 1 new center just like this every month and then turning it into the block. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I'm speaking in this video. To make this 3D flower granny square, you will need yarn. I'm using 6 different shades of Favorite from Ice Yarns. I'll link this in the description box down below. You need 1 color for the center, and 3 colors for your petals, 1 color for your leaves, and 1 color to make your block. I will be using a 5mm crochet hook for all of my Bloomscape Cal blocks and all of these granny squares. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. So let's get started. Starting with your center color, make a slip knot any which way you normally do. Shrink that down and pop it onto your hook. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to make a ring. We're going to go into that very first chain we made right here. If you'd rather do a magic ring, you are welcome to do so. But pop your hook into that very first chain we made and get yourself a little U shape underneath your hook. Just like that. So slide everything up onto the fat part of your hook, make a little U shape, and hold that U shape open with your finger and thumb, taking care to hold your tail along with that U shape, and slip stitch to join to form a ring, and still hold that open with your finger and thumb. Chain 1, and now we're going to do 12 double crochets into the center of that ring, right where we're holding it open. So pop your hook in, 12 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. If you run out of room, just grab that starting chain and just slide those stitches back to give yourself some more room to make your double crochets lay nice and flat. Now just count to make sure you have 12. And slip stitch to that first real double crochet to join right there. So slip stitch in to that first double crochet. 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. Slip stitch and chain 1. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 1. Grab the color yarn that you're using for your first round of petals, and we're going to be working into front loops for this next round. So we're going to start, here's our join. We're not going into that stitch right after the join. We're going to go into the front loop, so just 1 strand of yarn on our hook, and we're going to go 2nd strand over, and I'll show you why when we get back around. So into the 2nd stitch, just picking up that 1 front loop only. So slide your hook in. Loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it a little bit along with your work, and chain 1. Wrap your yarn and make 2 double crochets into that same front loop, into that same spot. There's 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch into that same front loop. 1 slip stitch. Now into the next front loop, right here. Just pop your hook in one loop, that front loop only on your hook. Slip stitch to start your new petal. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 double crochets into that same front loop. There's 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and into that same space, that same front loop, slip stitch to finish that petal. Just like that. So we're going to do this into every front loop all the way around this round. So every front loop is going to get a petal. So into the next front loop, slide your hook in. We're going to make a petal. And petals for this round are 1 slip stitch, chain 2, 1 and 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to slip stitch to finish off that petal. Slip stitch into the very same front loop. Just like that. So we're going to do that into every single front loop all the way around. We're going to make 12 petals. So into the next front loop, just that first strand on your hook, slip stitch, chain 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1, 2, and slip stitch to finish the petal. Slip stitch into the very same front loop, just like that. So now you can pause the video and keep working around, 1 petal into each front loop all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get closer to that join. Are you enjoying yourself? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more fun content just like this. When you get back closer to that join, just count your petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now I know I only have to make 1 more petal in that area there. That's why I like to start my new color right after my join, so I can always adjust if I need to put in an extra petal if my stitch count went a little bit off. So last petal into the last front loop, just like that. Slip stitch into that very first front loop, 1 slip stitch, chain 1, and now we are ready to start the next round, but we're not going to change our yarn color. Now we're going to work into the back loops. So turning your work over, we want to look for a back loop that is nearby. You could pick either one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go a little bit behind and go for this back loop right there. So we're just going to slide that back loop onto our hook and slip stitch and chain 1. Now into that very same loop, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So sliding that back loop back on my hook, 2 half doubles into the same stitch. 1 and 2. Into the next back loop. See how I'm just pulling my petals down and pinching them so they stay out of the way? Then you can see your back loops a lot easier. So there's 1 and there's 2. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets into each back loop. Make sure I got all of it. There we go. All the way around our flower. So 1 and 2 half double crochets. Fold the next petals down so we can see that next back loop right here. 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2. Fold your next petals down so you can see your next back loop right here. 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2. So now I can pause the video and keep working around. 2 half double crochets into every back loop all the way around. There'll be 12 back loops that we're working into, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to where we started. When you get back to where we started, just turn your work over. We want to make sure we've worked into 12 back loops. So how you can tell that is you can just look here where your stitches came from. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that is what we want. We want to work into those 12 back loops. If you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up. If you need to add one, you can always add it right where we joined our yarn. Just put in 2 more half double crochets. Now into the top of that first half double right here, we are going to slip stitch to join. So slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes the second color. To start the third color, look for where our join was. We're going to work into the front loops again. So there's our join with our last color. I'm going to join into this front loop right there, right after our join. I've skipped one and I'm working into the second. So into the second front loop after we joined our yarn, we're just going to slide our hook in just like we did before. Grab your next color of yarn, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the side of your work, and chain 1. Into the same front loop, 1 double crochet. And into the next front loop, right here, we're going to do 1 double crochet. Just into that next front loop, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. So for this round, we're doing our petal into 2 front loops. Into the next front loop, just slide your hook in and slip stitch, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. And into the next front loop, right there, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. So we're doing the same petal we did before, but we're just doing it into 2 front loops instead of all into 1. So into the next front loop, slip stitch, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. That starts our petal. And then to finish our petal in the next front loop, just that 1 front loop only, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. So that's what we're going to do all the way around for this round. So our petal into 2 front loops. So starting in the next front loop, slip stitch, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into the next front loop, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. So you can pause the video and keep working around, making a slip stitch, chain 2, and double crochet into the first front loop, and a double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch into the second front loop, all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back closer to where we started, just count. You should have 11 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're going to make our last petal into these stitches here, but if you miscounted in your previous row, you have to add a petal or take a petal away. There's enough spaces in here where you can do that. So into the next front loop, I'm going to start my last petal with my slip stitch, chain 2, 1 double crochet. And then after the join into that front loop after, right here, that's where I'm going to finish my petal. So 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. Slip stitch into the next front loop just to join it all up, and chain 1. And now we're going to turn our work over so we can look at the back. We want to be looking for a back loop that is right where our yarn is. So I could pick this little guy here or this one. I'm going to back up a little bit and pick this back loop, but it doesn't matter, just pick one in that neighborhood. So into that back loop and slip stitch to join, chain 1, folding those petals down, keeping them out of our way, into that very same back loop. I want to do 1 half double crochet. So 1 half double crochet into that same back loop, and into the next back loop I'm going to do 2 half double crochets. So an increase every other back loop. So there's 2 half double crochets into the next. So here's my back loops. You can just, if you fold your petals down, you can see them sitting on the edge. So into the next back loop, 1 half double crochet, and into the next back loop 2 half double crochets. So an increase every other stitch for this round. So 1 half double crochet, and then 2 half double crochets into the next back loop. 1 and 2. And just pinch your petals out of the way so that you can see those back loops. Make it easier for yourself, and then you can just pause the video and keep working along, making 1 half double crochet into the first stitch and 2 half double crochets into the second stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where you started, you can just count to make sure you have 36 stitches, or that you just worked in to all of your back loops. And we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first half double crochet to join, right there. So just pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes your third color. To start your fourth color, we are going to join again after our previous join, just the second front loop only after that join. Slide your hook in, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the edge of your work, and chain 1. Wrap your yarn into that same front loop, 1 double crochet, just like we did before. And into the next front loop, right here, we're going to do 2 treble crochets. So wrap your yarn twice, and into the next front loop only, 2 treble crochets. 1 and 2. Into your next front loop, we're going to finish our petals. So we're going to finish our petal with 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, and a slip stitch into that same front loop to join. 1 slip stitch. So into the next front loop, we're going to start our petal. So slip stitch, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. So that starts our petal. Into the next front loop only, just the front loop, we're going to do 2 treble crochets. That's the middle of our petal. 1 and 2. And into the next front loop only, right here, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch to finish that petal. Just like that. So for this round, we are going to be doing our petal into 3 front loops. So we're starting our petal in 1 loop. We're doing 2 treble crochets into the second front loop, and then we're finishing with a double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch into the third. So into the first front loop, start your petal. So slip stitch, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. Into the next front loop, 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2, and into the next front loop, we're going to finish our petal. So 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 1 slip stitch to finish the petal. Just like that. So now you can pause the video and keep working around, doing your petal into 3 front loops, starting slip stitch, chain 2, double crochet, the next one 2 treble crochets, and the last one 1 double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch, all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where you joined, we're just going to do our last petal into these last front loops. But if you need to adjust your stitch count, make sure you've already done your 11 petals and your 12th petal fits right in here. Just like that. And slip stitch into that first front loop just to join it up. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. And we're finished with that color. So cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So that finishes the 4th color. And now we are ready to turn this cute little circle into a square. To turn this gorgeous little flower into a square, just turn your work over a little bit. We want to find any loop back here. Flip your flower over and hold those petals back. I'm going to do it right where I joined again. Just 1 little stitch ahead of where I joined. That always gives me enough leeway to fix any stitch count error I may or may not have. Loop of your new color on your hook. This is for the leaves. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join, dropping your tail, just holding it along the top of your work, and chain 1. So that's going to count as our first single crochet. Now, holding your petals down, we're looking for those back loops again. So there's back loops all the way around the edge of our flower. So into the first back loop, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each back loop all the way around. So we're not doing any increases or anything fancy, just 1 single crochet into each back loop all the way around. So you can pause the video, just keep working your way around, 1 single crochet into each back loop all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to where we started. When you get back to where we started, just go around and make sure you have 36 stitches. Now we're going to slip stitch to the top of our chain right there, the top of our first stitch. Just pop your hook in. You need at least 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join. And chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I went to the very same spot, the very same stitch, 1 treble crochet, right where you started that chain. So wrap your yarn twice and 1 treble crochet, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, 1, and 2. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and we're going to work into the third. Into the third stitch, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 1 and 2, into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, 1, 2. So into the third, wrap your yarn twice, and we're going to do a corner. Corners, 2 treble crochets, wrap your yarn twice, 1 more treble crochet into that same stitch, chain 2, 1 and 2, wrap your yarn twice, and 2 more treble crochets into that same stitch. So that's how we're going to be doing our corners. There's 1 treble crochet, and here is another. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and that is our corner. Skip 2 stitches, so skip those, into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2, and into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and into the third, we're going to do a corner. So wrap your yarn twice. Corners are 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and 2 treble crochets, all into the same stitch. So there's my second treble crochet, chain 2, wrap your yarn twice, and 2 more treble crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2 stitches, and into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, into the third, we're going to do a corner. Corners, 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and 2 treble crochets, all into the same stitch. So there's 1 treble crochet, there is 2 treble crochets, chain 2, wrap your yarn twice, and 2 more treble crochets into that same stitch. 1, and here is number 2. Chain 2, skip 2, into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and now we are back to where we started. We're going to skip 2 and we're right back into that corner space. If your stitches don't line up, if you have an extra stitch or a 1 stitch short, you don't have to worry about it. You're not really going to notice after the next round anyway. So wrap your yarn twice, and into that very same spot where we did our chain and our first treble crochet, we're going to finish that corner with 2 treble crochets. There's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the top of your chain 4, right there, we're going to slip stitch right into the top of that chain 4. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes your 5th color. To turn it into the block or the square, just pop your hook in to any corner space, loop of your block color or your square color on your hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail, just holding it along the top of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Into that very same corner space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, jumping over into the next space, so after that corner, right over here, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, into the next space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and here is number 3. Next we have our corner. So whenever you get to the corner with your tail, just bring your tail forward so you can work over it with those corner stitches. Into your corner space, we're going to do a corner. Corners are 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now into each of these 3 spaces along the side, each of those are going to get 3 double crochets. So you can pause the video and do 3 double crochets into each space along the side, and I'll meet you when we get to our corner. When we get to our corner space, we're going to do a corner. So corners get corners. Corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into the same corner space. There's 2, there's 3, chain 2, turn your work a little bit or rotate it so we can do our next 3 double crochets into the same corner space. You can slide those stitches back if you need some more room. And 3 double crochets just to finish that corner. There's 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. So you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back up to where we started, into that same corner space, you can just slide those stitches forward to give yourself a bit more room. We're going to end with 3 double crochets into the same corner space where we started. So 1, 2, and 3. If you are going to keep going and make it into the Bloomscape Cal or a larger granny square, you're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet to join. So single crochet into the top of that chain 3. That's going to leave you right nice in the center of that corner. So single crochet to join. You just hold that space open with your finger and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and turn your work. If you're doing the Bloomscape Cal, you are going to make your first single crochet right over here and continue following the video. I'll link it up in the cards. You'll just continue right from here. If you are making your granny square bigger, you'll just do your first 2 double crochets right into this same corner space. 1 and 2. Pop a stitch marker into that corner space just to remind yourself of where you started, and then keep going around just regular granny stitches, 3 into each space, and your regular corners all the way around until your granny square is the size you would like it to be. Or if you're finishing it off this size, do a chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch right to the top of that chain 3, slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.